It was July 22, 2015, a hot, sticky night in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Neon lights from the downtown bars reflected on the damp asphalt as locals escaped into the nightlife. Among them was Steven MacKrell, a 53-year-old marketing consultant, known by his friends as a calm, funny, and dependable man. He wasn't the kind of guy to cause trouble. But that night, something was different. Around 11:45 p.m., security cameras caught Steven leaving a lively bar on Andrews Avenue. He waved goodbye to a bartender he knew well, smiled faintly, and walked toward the parking lot where his white Ford Fusion was parked. That would be the last time anyone ever saw him alive. When Steven didn't show up to work the next morning, his colleagues thought he might have taken a spontaneous day off. But by the second day, with no calls, no texts, and no posts online, concern grew. His phone went straight to voicemail. His credit cards went unused. His apartment was untouched. His sister, Lydia MacKrell, filed a missing person report with the Fort Lauderdale police. Investigators began what they thought would be a routine check, but soon realized they were dealing with something far more mysterious. Traffic cameras showed Steven's car heading north out of Fort Lauderdale around midnight, but it never appeared on any exit or toll camera again. It was as if both man and machine had been swallowed by the Florida night. Police searched nearby ponds, canals, and swamps. Florida's wetlands, with their murky waters and thick vegetation, can hide secrets for decades. But divers found nothing. The case grew cold within months. Over the years, rumors surfaced. Some said Steven had debts. Others whispered about an argument at the bar that night. A few even believed he'd faked his disappearance, a new life somewhere off the grid. But Lydia never gave up. She kept his photo on her refrigerator, his number in her phone, and called the police every year on his birthday for updates that never came. For 10 long years, Steven's story faded into the archives of missing person databases, another name in Florida's endless list of disappearances. Until the morning of October 2nd, 2025. A landscaping crew working near Interstate 95 in Boca Raton noticed something metallic gleaming under the pond's surface. The water level had dropped due to drought. When the tow truck lifted the object, onlookers watched in stunned silence. A white Ford Fusion, its body corroded, windows shattered. Inside, skeletal remains. A faded Florida driver's license lay on the floorboard. Name, Steven Thomas MacKrell. After a decade of silence, the truth was finally rising from the water. But detectives soon realized this wasn't just an accident. The discovery of bullet holes in the driver's side door turned a missing persons case into a homicide. Somebody wanted Steven gone, and for 10 years, they almost got away with it. October 2nd, 2025. The humid Florida morning shimmered with heat as detectives from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office gathered around the drained pond off Glades Road, Boca Raton. Yellow tape fluttered in the wind, sunlight bouncing off the rusted roof of a half-submerged white Ford Fusion, Steven MacKrell's car. It had been 10 years since anyone spoke his name outside family circles. Now, reporters were flooding the scene, cameras rolling, drones hovering. A quiet corner of Boca Raton had just become the center of a cold case storm. Detective Erica Nunez, a 12-year veteran, watched as the tow truck winched the car out of the muck. The water, once opaque, now stank of gasoline and algae. Inside the vehicle were the skeletal remains of a man still strapped in the driver's seat, but something didn't sit right with Nunez. She crouched beside the door and noticed 3 bullet holes, angled inward. The glass around them was shattered, not from the fall into water, but from something far more violent. "This wasn't an accident," she said quietly. "Somebody shot him before that car hit the pond." Forensics moved quickly. They pulled fragments of bullets from the seat frame and recovered Steven's wristwatch, still ticking faintly when shaken. Investigators estimated the car had gone into the pond sometime between midnight and 2 a.m. on July 23, 2015, the very night Steven disappeared. As news broke, calls poured in from the public. Most were useless tips, but one call stopped Detective Nunez cold. A retired tow truck driver named Raymond Ellis claimed he'd seen a white sedan parked oddly near that pond a decade ago, with its headlights off and a black SUV behind it. He'd reported it once, but no one followed up. Now, His memory had become gold. Meanwhile, Steven's sister Lydia drove from Fort Lauderdale to Boca Raton. When she saw the recovered car, the rusted frame, the cracked license plate, the police lights reflecting off the pond, she broke down. "For 10 years, I thought maybe he ran away," she whispered to reporters. "Now I know somebody made sure he couldn't come back." Detectives pulled Steven's phone records from archived servers. His last call was placed at 11:57 p.m., just minutes before his disappearance, to a contact saved as JR. The number was prepaid, untraceable, and disconnected the next day. Who was JR? Back at the crime lab, results from the ballistic tests came in. The bullets found inside the Ford Fusion matched a .38 caliber revolver, a weapon favored by private security personnel in the early 2010s. Detective Nunez widened the search to include anyone in Steven's life connected to security firms, firearm licenses, or past disputes. What she found opened a new dimension. Steven had recently filed a workplace complaint before his disappearance. The person he accused? A former co-worker named Jason Rudd, known by the initials JR. By the end of that week, Boca Raton wasn't just a crime scene. It was a map of hidden betrayals. Neighbors recalled seeing unfamiliar vehicles near the pond back in 2015. One of them, a black Chevy Tahoe, possibly linked to Rudd's former company. The deeper Nunez dug, the stranger the puzzle became. A missing man, a hidden call, a pond that kept its secret for 10 long years. And now, the truth was finally rising to the surface. October 6th, 2025. Detective Erica Nunez sat inside the dimly lit evidence room of the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, staring at a decade-old file marked MacKrell, Steven, missing person. Now it had been upgraded to homicide. On her desk were 3 things: a prepaid phone record, a blurry security still from 2015, and a single name, Jason Rudd, initials JR. The same initials as the last person Steven called before he vanished. But who exactly was Jason Rudd? Back in 2015, Rudd worked as a regional security manager for a private logistics firm. Ironically, the same company where Steven had been employed as a consultant. A quiet man, mid-40s, divorced, with no criminal record. But Steven had filed an internal report accusing Rudd of embezzling client funds and falsifying security logs. The complaint had gone nowhere, until Steven disappeared 3 days later. Now, with the discovery of the Ford Fusion and the .38 caliber bullets, that coincidence had become deadly relevant. Detective Nunez called in her tech team. Within hours, they recovered an old hard drive from the firm's records department. Buried deep in archived emails was a chain dated July 21st, 2015, the night before Steven's last known contact. In it, Rudd had written to a colleague, "MacKrell's been asking too many questions. I'll take care of it tonight." It wasn't proof, but it was motive and timing. When detectives ran Rudd's name through federal databases, they discovered he'd left Florida in 2016 and was now living quietly under a new alias in Savannah, Georgia. He owned a private security consultancy, fittingly called Ironwatch Solutions. October 8, 2025. Detective Nunez and FBI agents arrived in Savannah. They watched Rudd from across the street as he unlocked his office door, wearing aviator shades and carrying a black duffel bag. He looked calm, ordinary, the kind of man who blends in anywhere. When agents approached, Rudd didn't run. He just smiled faintly and said, "Took you long enough?" Inside his office, investigators found something chilling. A framed photo of Steven MacKrell, standing beside a group of employees at a company retreat in 2015. The glass was cracked. In a storage cabinet, agents discovered several old cell phones, including a prepaid flip phone matching the number listed in Steven's last call log, JR. At the station, Rudd was calm during questioning. He claimed he and Steven were friends. He said Steven had been stressed and wanted to disappear for a while. When confronted with the email and bullet evidence, his tone changed. "You can't prove I was there," he said. "The car went into the water 10 years ago. Nature erased everything." But nature hadn't erased everything. Forensics later confirmed traces of Rudd's DNA on the door handle and seatbelt buckle inside Steven's car. Combined with the bullet match to a gun Rudd had once registered, it was enough for an arrest warrant. As the sun set over Boca Raton that night, Lydia MacKrell stood by the pond where her brother's car had been found. Detective Nunez joined her quietly. "Is it true?" Lydia asked. "We've got him," Nunez replied, "and we're going to make him talk." For the first time in 10 years, Lydia felt peace, but deep down she knew there was more. Steven's death might not have been just about money. Something else was buried beneath those waters. Something darker. October 10th, 2025. Inside the sterile gray walls of the Palm Beach County interrogation room, the hum of a flickering fluorescent light echoed above. Jason Rudd sat across from Detective Erica Nunez, his hands cuffed, his face unreadable. On the table lay the evidence, the cracked phone, the .38 caliber match, and the old photo of Steven MacKrell smiling beside him. "Jason," Nunez began calmly, "you and Steven worked together. He accused you of embezzlement, and 3 days later he disappeared. His car turns up 10 years later with bullet holes. That's not coincidence. That's murder." Rudd leaned back, smirking. "You've been watching too many crime shows, Detective." Nunez slid the email printout across the table. "MacKrell's been asking too many questions. I'll take care of it tonight." Rudd's smile faded. For hours, he said nothing. But the silence spoke louder than denial. Detectives shifted tactics, showing him photos of Steven's skeletal remains, the pond, the recovered bullets. Finally, Rudd sighed. "You think I killed him because of money? You have no idea what was really going on." He leaned forward. Steven wasn't just investigating missing funds. He found out something else, something that could have destroyed a lot of people. "What people?" Nunez pressed. "People higher than me," Rudd said. He thought he was doing the right thing, but he was in way over his head. Nunez paused. "So you're saying someone else ordered the hit?" Rudd looked straight into her eyes. "You could call it that. Let's just say I didn't pull the trigger. I just made sure the cleanup was handled." He mentioned a name. Derek Sloan, the company's former vice president of security, a man with deep ties to private defense contractors and rumored offshore accounts. Sloan had abruptly resigned in August 2015, right after Steven vanished. He'd moved to Texas, changed his identity, and disappeared from the corporate world completely. Detectives pulled records. Sloan's name appeared on multiple wire transfers. Large sums routed through shell companies the same month Steven vanished. Now, a decade later, one of those accounts had just been reactivated from an IP address traced to Houston, Texas. The pieces were finally connecting. As for Rudd, forensic results sealed his fate. His DNA on Steven's car wasn't from old handshakes, as he claimed. It was found inside the seatbelt buckle and under the steering wheel, proof he'd been in the vehicle after Steven's final moments. Faced with undeniable evidence, Rudd broke. His confession came quietly, almost with relief. "I didn't mean for him to die," he said. "They told me to make him talk, scare him a little, but Steven fought back. Sloan panicked. Shots were fired. They told me to drive the car to the pond, push it in, and forget everything." When Nunez asked who they were, Rudd went silent again. "If I tell you that, I'll end up where he did." That night, Lydia MacKrell received the call she had waited a decade for. Her brother's killer had confessed. But as she listened, her relief turned to dread. Detective Nunez's final words echoed through the line. "Lydia, this case isn't over. The man who gave the order is still out there." October 18th, 2025. The air in Houston was heavy and warm, thick with diesel fumes and late-night humidity. Inside an unmarked black SUV, Detective Erica Nunez reviewed a thin manila file. On its cover, Sloan, Derek, primary suspect. After Jason Rudd's confession, the Department of Justice authorized a joint task force between Florida and Texas investigators. Their target, Derek Sloan, the former vice president of security for Horizon Logistics, the same company where Steven MacKrell once worked. For 10 years, Sloan had vanished without a trace, but digital forensics from the revived offshore accounts had exposed his new identity, David Sanders, a quiet consultant living in a gated neighborhood outside Houston. Nunez looked out the window as the team approached the property, a sprawling ranch house surrounded by oak trees and motion sensors. "This guy's not hiding," she murmured. "He's living comfortably." At 6:02 a.m., the SWAT team moved in. They breached the front door and swept the home. Sloan wasn't there, but his study told a story. On his desk sat a .38 caliber revolver, identical to the weapon used in Steven's murder, and a safe filled with flash drives, offshore contracts, and fake passports. In a hidden drawer beneath the floorboards, investigators found an old burner phone. Inside, one unsent message. "Too many eyes are opening. Rudd can't hold them off forever." It was dated 2 days before Jason Rudd's arrest. By noon, Sloan's car, a silver Lexus SUV, was spotted 60 miles west on Highway 90, heading toward the small oil town of Columbus, Texas. Nunez and 2 federal agents pursued him down long stretches of sun-bleached asphalt. The chase ended near an abandoned motel on Route 71, where Sloan's SUV was found parked beside a rusted payphone. Inside Room 9, the air conditioner hummed, and on the bed sat Derek Sloan, calm, composed, and already expecting them. "You've been busy," he said with a half-smile. "Erica Nunez, right? I've read your work." Nunez drew her badge. "You're under arrest for the murder of Steven MacKrell." Sloan didn't move. "You think you understand what happened," he said softly, "but Steven wasn't some innocent whistleblower. He was part of it." Nunez frowned. "Part of what?" Sloan leaned forward. "The money, the fake security contracts. We all took our cut, Steven included. When he tried to back out, he panicked and threatened to go public. I couldn't risk that. Neither could my investors." "Who are they?" she demanded. Sloan smiled darkly. "People with more reach than you'll ever imagine. You'll never touch them." He paused, then whispered, "They're still cleaning up loose ends." Before Nunez could respond, a single shot rang out. Sloan slumped forward, a gun hidden beneath the table. Blood pooled across the motel floor. Within minutes, crime scene tape surrounded the building. In Sloan's phone records, investigators found recent encrypted messages to unknown recipients labeled P1 and P2. The last message read, "MacKrell file reopened. Containment necessary." Detective Nunez stood outside the motel, watching the coroner's van pull away. Another piece of the puzzle was gone, but a larger question now haunted her. If Derek Sloan wasn't working alone, who were P1 and P2, and how far were they willing to go to keep Steven MacKrell's truth buried? October 24, 2025. The Houston motel where Derek Sloan ended his life was now sealed off, yellow tape fluttering against the Texas wind. Inside, Detective Erica Nunez and a team of digital forensics experts combed through Sloan's final messages. 2 names kept reappearing, P1 and P2, encrypted, untouchable. But Nunez knew that if she could crack those aliases, she could finally uncover who ordered the hit on Steven MacKrell, and why. The breakthrough came from the unlikeliest clue. Sloan's last phone pinged a data tower near Washington, D.C., 2 days before his death. The location? A private government contracting firm that had once handled logistics and defense shipping for Horizon, Steven's old company. That's where P1 and P2 came from. Not random criminals, but executives with government ties. The FBI's cyber unit worked overnight to decrypt the hidden drives found in Sloan's safe. By morning, they uncovered a folder named Project Atlas. Inside were spreadsheets, coded invoices, and surveillance notes dating back to 2014, proof that Horizon Logistics had been laundering millions through fake overseas security contracts. And Steven MacKrell? He was the whistleblower who accidentally stumbled upon the digital trail. Emails revealed that Steven had contacted a federal auditor a week before his disappearance. But someone intercepted the message, someone inside the system. The sender? P1, real name Philip Grayson, a retired defense liaison turned corporate board member. His second in command, P2, was Natalie Reeves, the company's chief financial officer. Both had signed off on the account Steven was investigating. They weren't just covering up theft. They were hiding government kickbacks and falsified weapons shipments. Detective Nunez traveled to Washington, D.C. with federal warrants. When she and her team entered Grayson's mansion in Georgetown, they found his study empty, save for a lit cigar and a half-packed briefcase. Minutes later, an alarm went off at Dulles International Airport. Security cameras caught Grayson moving through a private terminal, with Reeves by his side, holding diplomatic passports under fake names. But their plan unraveled when a routine customs scan flagged the documents. By the time Nunez arrived, agents had both of them in custody, tired, angry, and silent. In interrogation, Grayson showed no remorse. "You think this was about one man?" he scoffed. MacKrell was collateral. He saw what he shouldn't have seen. Reeves stayed quiet until the very end. When Nunez showed her the files recovered from Sloane's drives, her eyes welled up. "I told him not to go that night," she whispered. "He said the truth mattered more. He didn't deserve what we did." 2 weeks later, the Department of Justice charged both executives with conspiracy, fraud, and murder in furtherance of racketeering. Jason Rudd, still awaiting sentencing, agreed to testify, sealing the